In today's video, I want to show you some of the mice that I had over the years. So this is a Logitech ball mouse. It's connected to my computer right now through a PS2 port. So the computer that I have it connected to is, I think the motherboard is the Asus Z97 Pro motherboard. So this motherboard was made in 2014, and this is the mouse that I'm using right now with it. And it does work. I'll demonstrate to you that it does work. Let me show you that it does work. As you can see, that's my computer monitor, and I'm using the mouse right now, that mouse, the ball mouse. As you can see, the cursor is working, but the DPI is quite low for this, so I have to move the mouse a lot to move it across the screen, unlike my optical mouse, which is here. When I move it across the screen, it's very smooth. I don't have to move the mouse very much. It's much more sensitive because it has a much higher DPI, or dots per square inch. So that mouse, the mechanical mouse, was used. I think I bought it back in maybe 1998 or 1997. I don't really recall. And for these ball mice, this is another one right here. I think it has 3 rollers in it. That's what it enables the mouse paw to traverse the X horizontal and Y vertical axes. That's what allows the cursor to move up and down, basically, having these three rollers on it. And it came with this ball right here. So the problem with these mechanical mice is that when you use it, this ball is in contact with the surface, so it gets dirty, right? So these rollers get dirty. So occasionally you would have to clean these rollers in the mouse to get it to work smoothly, or it would the performance would be a little bit rough. So you'd have to these mice you can take apart like I did, and here I would just put it together. You could just take it apart like this by rotating the bottom part, and you can clean it, you can maintain it. That's the interesting. That's what we had to do when we used mechanical mice. And the DPI is much lower than a standard optical mouse, which I will show you different optical mice that I used over the years. Here, this one right here. This is a Logitech optical mouse that I bought back in 2002 or 2003. I don't really remember exactly, but I bought it around that time. It still does work. It's modern in the way that it has a roller here that you could use, a scrolling wheel. But the scrolling wheel also functions as a button, as you can see. It has 3 buttons here. It has another button over here on the side, so it has 4 buttons. I think this was a gaming mouse that I used. It's an optical mouse, as you can see. There's an LED at the bottom of it. There are 2 LEDs. And the reason why I stopped using this was because this scroll wheel stopped working. But everything else on the mouse does work. As you can see, the Logitech mouse that I have here has 3 buttons, but it has no scroll wheel on it. A lot of the older mice didn't have scroll wheels on it. That was kind of like a newer thing. So even on this 2-button HP mechanical mouse, there's no scroll wheel, as you can see. That doesn't exist. And typically, mice back in the from the 1980s to, I guess, the 1990s had just 2 buttons like this, or 3 buttons like that mouse. And you had to have a driver for the mouse as well to use the mouse on computers back in the 1990s and the 1980s also, which is something we had to do. And this is another mouse that I used. I think I used it back in 2000s or something. Let me see. Yeah, I don't really remember when. It was 2000s, early 2000s. As you can see, it has a scroll wheel. It's got 3 buttons. 1, 2, 3. And this is also an optical mouse as well. The DPI is much lower for these earlier optical mice, and as you can see, the interface here is USB. The interface for the mechanical mice was PS2, like this, as you can see. And this is a mouse that I use most recently. I'm sorry, it's quite dirty. I haven't maintained it. This is a Logitech gaming mouse. This has a pretty high DPI. Let me see what the DPIs were back in the day. Let me see. I don't have such a good memory, but I'm going to look it up. Google it, actually. 400 versus 25,600 DPI for a modern gaming mouse, basically. That's a lot. I mean, that's quite significant. As you can see, that's why the performance of this sucks. The ball mouse. That's why they do not use ball mice anymore. But even having a ball mouse back in, I guess, the 1990s or even 1980s, with they did have some operating systems with GUI, or graphical user interface, like the Macintosh, which was released in 1984. That came with a 1-button mouse. Mouse was an integral part of the operating system because you had an operating system with a graphical user interface. But for most computers back in the 1980s, late 1970s, up to the 1980s, even up to 1989, did not have an operating system that had a GUI. Because I think for the PC world, let's see when Windows 3.0 came out. I think it was 1991, but I want to make sure. Came out in May 22nd, 1990. So I guess from 1978, when the first computers were released, up to 1989, most operating systems require you to use commands that you had to know or memorize, to use the computer. But when GUI started coming out, operating systems like, I think some versions of Workbench, which is a operating system for the Amiga, had a GUI operating system. But the reason why GUIs weren't very popular back in the 1970s, 1980s, was because you needed to have a pretty good or powerful processor to use a GUI versus using text on a command prompt or something. Using text doesn't require a lot of it doesn't use up a lot of system resources like CPU power and memory and stuff like that. So that's the reason why mice weren't very popular back in the 1980s. I didn't have a mouse in my my first PC when I got it in, I guess it was around December of 1989. My computer did not have did not come with a mouse. It came with everything but a mouse. It came with a monitor, a keyboard, of course the box for the computer, and the pizza box for the computer. It came with did I say printer? Came with everything but the mouse. I had to buy that separately a year later. It cost about $100, and it came with a ISA card with a PS2 port in it, so I could use the mouse because the Microsoft mouse had a PS2 port. It didn't have a serial port. If it had a serial port, I could just connect it to the computer in the back, and it would work. But that wasn't the case. So mice weren't popular. So that's what I want to share with you today. I want to kind of show you the evolution of the mouse. I had an Apple. I think I had an Apple IIc mouse. I don't have it anymore. I lost it. That would have been cool if I could have shown you that on this video. That only had one mouse. Of course, it's also a mechanical mouse like that, so it had a ball in it. So they also had stuff like trackpads. They were used on video game consoles and computers, but it wasn't very. I don't think it ever caught on. It never became popular, but they did exist. Games like Centipede, which was released by Atari in the arcades, had a trackpad, and it worked pretty good. It's much better than using a joystick, because a trackpad is much more smoother than using a joystick. Even today, I mean, using a mouse to play a game like a 3D shooter, even modern 3D shooters, or any game, even a game like War Thunder, my preferred choice is using a mouse and a keyboard. Even when I play games like Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate, and even newer games like the one that I got recently. I think it's Wukong or something. I still use a mouse and keyboard to play that. Even the latest games. So it hasn't changed since the days of when I was playing Wolfenstein 3D back in 1993 on a Pentium computer, or when I played it on my friend's 486 computers. I would use a mouse and keyboard to play Doom, and every game after that I used a mouse and keyboard for playing those type of games. And it's much better than using a 6-axis game controller in many ways, I think. Because I did play like 3D type of shooters, playing games like I think it was something called Fall of Man or something, and also games like Metal Gear Solid 4 on the PlayStation 3. You could only play that game with a 6-axis controller, which came with the PlayStation 3, and it was I really did not like playing with that. You could use the analog. You would use the analog controller to aim and stuff, like I think the left analog controller, but it's still not very comfortable. It's not as good as a mouse and a keyboard. So the mouse and keyboard combination still persists to this day, and the technology for the mouse has gotten better and better over the years, from mechanical ball mouse to the modern optical mice that we have. I think some even use lasers. Lasers are more precise, and they can use lasers or LEDs for optical mice. So, and very precise, as you saw for a modern gaming mouse. The DPI was about 25,000 DPI compared to a mechanical mouse back in from the 1990s, which was only 400. Quite a big improvement. So that's what I want to share with you today. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up. If you want to add anything, you could leave it in the comment section below, and thank you for watching.